Members, staff, no members of the gallery. Welcome to the council meeting for Tuesday the 24th of March, and in doing so I'd like to acknowledge the land we meet on today as the traditional lands for the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. We also read you the council pledge. We seek wisdom and understanding as we face the duties of our united task, praying for the peace and prosperity of our city. Please be seated. On leave we have nil, and apologies we have from Councillor Harris. A declaration by members of a conflict of interest. Are there any declarations for any items tonight? I couldn't think of any. Right, that being the case, we'll keep moving. Confirmation of minutes. Can someone please confirm the minutes from the ordinary meeting of council for the 25th of February 2020? Councillor Barnett, I'm having to look to my side. This is a new arrangement. Do I have a seconder?
So seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Groot. Either of you wish to speak to it?
No.
Any further debate? Vote. All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. Thank you. And public question time. No one in the gallery? Final call. No public question time tonight because there's no one in the gallery, just for the recording. We are in a different meeting arrangement here, so the camera can't pick up, but the gallery is seated at the rear and to the outside of this room. So there is no one from the public in attendance tonight. Petitions nil, deputations nil, questions without notice. Are there any? And I'll foreshadow before you ask that I am going to seek your permission to pull forward item 12.4 on COVID-19 for an update from staff. So if you have any questions about that, I will not just ask your leave to pull it forward, I'll also ask your leave to suspend meeting procedures to allow plenty of discussion. Are there any other questions without notice? No, that being the case, very good. We'll move to seek the permission to pull forward item 12.4. All those in favour? Against, it is thus pulled forward, and I now seek leave to suspend meeting procedures until 8 p.m. should we need it. All those in favour? Against is carried. Okay, we're now in meeting suspension. The report's before you. I'm sure you've read it. And just an opening comments from me. The report on COVID-19 is out of date the moment you hit send to printer. So bear that in mind when you read the contents. I have advised you to read what's come out from the CEO on ongoing service provision. It's a really good document, but again, it's out of date as soon as you hit the printer. But I'm sure you'll agree that the CEO and I and his team have been working really hard to say we're still in business, the community still need us, they probably need us in some ways more than ever. What are we doing and what can we do? So that gives us some insight to where the team is at. Some of these things are in place. Some of these things are about to happen. Others are just ideas for consideration. So you have the report, you have that document in front of you. And of course we have our different meeting arrangements tonight to try and keep our separation distances okay. And just a quick update, we understand that the legislation to allow attendance at council meetings remotely has gone through both houses today. So it's just going through the formal government and then gazettal process before it becomes law. So we can't take advantage of it tonight, but we will certainly make it available to take advantage of at the next council meeting in April, or if we have a special council meeting before then, it should be available to us as well. So for tonight, thank you for coming in person. For the next meeting, you will have an option to attend remotely, and we'll probably use Zoom or something similar. So I think tonight, do we have you online there, Simon?
Yes, Mayor, I'm here. Thank you very much.
Sorry, you've gone back to being a flea, or actually more of a kind of a small bug, a bit bigger than a flea. Can we fix that volume? Simon's going to fix
that. Is that better? Can you hear me?
Can you sort the volume out at your end so we can hear you a bit better?
Is that better? Can you hear me better now?
No, you're still the size of a grasshopper. That was like a kung fu reference. How's that? Is that better?
Ask a question regarding.
Just let me sort out. Simon, just say something now.
Can you hear me a lot better now? Thank you.
That's way better. That's way better. How are we coming through?
Very clear. Good, thank you.
Okay, so we have one director in attendance via telephone, not Zoom. The next meeting we intend to have Zoom. It's understandable. Okay. Right. So, and before I take any questions, CEO, do you want to make any other opening remarks about where we're at?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We just reminded ourselves at the review, the agenda review meeting, that it was only Friday we had and put into place a number of things to protect our community and our staff. It was only yesterday at midday that restaurants, cafes, clubs, gyms, churches, and so on and so forth were closed, with the enormous impact on the economy and sent shockwaves across our community. And we are aware that the National Cabinet is meeting again tonight, and whether there's a decision tonight that's announced or not, I just prefer, I think I said to elected members in an email that the Deputy Senior Public Health Officer in South Australia is saying this is a day-by-day proposition. And we simply are seeing it moving very quickly. I just note, for people who haven't seen it, we're up to 170 cases in South Australia. That was 100 2 days ago, 134 yesterday, and 170 now. Up to 818 cases in New South Wales. Queensland's 397, Victoria's 411, and WA's 175. So it would seem that even in South Australia we're moving to the community phase. The report that was circulated is, as the Chair said, is a mixture of things that we're doing now, things that we'll be doing shortly, questions that we're asking ourselves and wanting to answer, and a lot of things that will ultimately have to come to Council for your resolution should we propose them. We're not actually proposing anything at the moment, we're just simply saying here's a set of options that we might consider. I'm happy to report, and it's probably very early days, that we've only had a small handful of ratepayers ring in to ask about help and relief. We just assume that will include, but at the moment it's literally 2 or 3 people. Mind you, as I said, it was only midday yesterday that decision hit. We are going to be very alive to needs in our community going forward. The paper before you is an information paper only. It doesn't seek any resolution of any kind or any decisions. It's just simply saying the team has been working very, very hard to conceive of every opportunity we can to keep services going. The directors and I are very happy to take any specific questions about the paper that you might want to raise. It really is for information. What we'd like to do is keep updating the paper as we go forward with anything that we think is material. And we just want to really make sure that communication's at the centre of this, not only for the staff and elected members, but ultimately for the community. And that's one of the big things we're wrestling with at the moment, because we need to know what to say. Obviously, the early days will be, we understand, please let us know what the issues are. I'm pleased that we're setting up Zoom meetings with people like Network Prospect, the Prospect Leaders Group, and we want to hear directly from businesses, either in person or by Zoom in our groups, and we'll be doing many of those meetings and say, well, what are you facing? How can we help? We may not be able to do it all, but please let us know what your issues are. And it will be a movable piece, and we want to continue just to be responsive, to step up, to make sure that we're, wherever we possibly can, continuing services. If there is a small silver lining in a very dark cloud, it's the fact that we're coming up with new ways of doing things that may remain with us, and new ways of working, new ways of communicating, new ways of delivering services. I think it's been well received that our principal office remains open, and indeed my understanding it's a legal duty that it remains open unless there's an order for a sort of basically a citywide shutdown. And what is interesting to see is the numbers, as you would expect, have dropped. I think, Nathan, I'm not sure, was it about 100?
106 today, 145 yesterday.
And they're mainly dropping.
No, 600 through the front door.
Yeah, so mainly dropping off books. And so people who actually enter to do a transaction are much, much lower than that. I guess we'd see that reducing over time. I don't want to take up too much more time by way of introduction, but we wanted you to get this paper to get some confidence, we hope, that we are addressing these things. We are asking ourselves questions and we don't have all the answers yet. We're talking to our council colleagues. There's a lot of good information sharing going on, not just at ERA or Gareth, but just around the place. It's great to see the fact that all local governments want to work together and through the LGA. I think the LGA has got to be commended for how quickly it's moved on this, the information we're getting, and almost on a daily basis sending through things that they've received, new advice, and you know, some of these issues are quite complex and they will be going forward. So the minutes should reflect that we thank the LGA for their leadership role, and we certainly thank our colleagues for sharing.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Alison?
Just a comment first, just to commend you on that initial report, or the first one and the second one. It's a really innovative approach, I think. Instead of saying this is the services we're not delivering, these are the services we're delivering differently, and that's really, really encouraging. And it seems encouraging that the morale and the staff, even though it's very challenging, I think we're there for our community. And certainly as an elected member, I'd like to know more about how I can be there for our community. Sure. And how we're needed to put that message out. A couple of things on the digital meetings around the legislation and the policy. I'm certainly in favour, where possible, that we can maintain video to have an active contribution. Obviously in some regional areas people might be disadvantaged with internet connections and those kind of things, so obviously it's maybe at the discretion of the chair, but where possible I prefer visual, because then you can actually, because they have the benefit of seeing you, and I think body language is really important in this environment. So that's just a couple of comments.
We agree. Yep. I think perhaps Chris, you want to talk about the network prospect stuff and how you're going to link people in, whether that's video or what method you're going to use?
Thank you, Mayor. We've rearranged all of our network prospect meetings, and instead of having one network prospect meeting every 2 months, we're going to have 2 a month. So we're actually increasing them fourfold as far as our digital engagement. We've also got more automation with our Active Campaign database, which is huge, and we're also working with the other ERA councils. So we'll still be doing Prospect Business Leaders Group, Prospect Property Network, and we'll also be doing some LinkedIn ones. So we're just going to really hit the airwaves. So, and that's in the back of the report there that Nigel's prepared.
Okay, so there'll be a lot of different methods, but I think for meetings, I think the point is video is better, but you're also doing a lot of push-out stuff.
Yeah, and all those meetings will be live meetings and mainly on Zoom, and we've got an account that will take up to 100 people to a meeting. So, and we're also thinking of making them, we're going to try and work out a fun thing to do in there as well, because it's all a bit serious at the moment.
Yeah.
Yes,
Christina?
yeah, question, Chris. I've started on my Facebook site to say, did you know that this, support our local restaurants, this restaurant is open for takeaway, and give the link to it. So are we going to be doing something with that on Network?
We're already been out digitally and talking to all those restaurants. Emma was doing that today, and asking who's open for business, who's going to be available for takeaway, so that we can actually put all that up on the Network Prospect site. So I didn't even ask her to do that; she thought of that one herself. Yes. So we're working on all fronts.
Yeah, good, thanks.
We might do. This is live, so I think we do leave it to the team, have great faith in their ability to have their radar up and respond as necessary. There's rumours that there'll be an even tighter lockdown in coming days, which will make the restaurants hard to even do takeaway. So I think we're just going to leave it with the team to know that we want them to be on the job and to respond just like Chris has explained. Emma did, which is fantastic. Any further questions?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I really support the staff and obviously administration for the tough decision to close Haiti. It gets to a stage where people can't do the right thing. You've got to get to that point, and I fully support the staff, and I thank the staff who are on the front line for the work that they're doing. Also just wanted to know, I have obviously been reading, but I just wanted to hear, I suppose, from CEO or a director, just in terms of what we can do for the general community that don't fall under the CHIPS funding, whether we can actually still get library resources to those people that aren't caught up under that funding. So if you're just regular Joe and Blow, obviously the library's shut, are you still able to access the resources, say with home delivery, or how that's going to look?
Great question. I wonder whether Nathan can answer that.
If I can. Yeah, we're looking at a couple of things. We've already broadened the reach of the home library service. We're debating at the moment whether or not to go fully down that path or look at the click and collect model as something that everyone can access. The problem with the click and collect model is it's currently essentially then promoting people to leave their house for a non-essential visit, and it pains me to say it, visiting a library to pick up a book is a non-essential piece of travel. So we're likely to go down the path of, we've got 2 officers that we can use, or two staff that we can use that currently do the home library on Mondays. We're looking at putting them on essentially 4 days a week or 5 days a week for home library, and broadening that beyond just the vulnerable, which is essentially where it sits at the moment. And we'll do that by really upping the promotion. The risk with that is it's too popular, and then we actually can't serve. If 1,000 want that service, we may not be able to keep up, but we'd rather push down that path to give a little bit more. Whereas at the moment, it's the CHIS clients, it's the elderly, it's the ones we know are vulnerable. Like we see people come into the library every week, 4 or 5 days a week. We know that that's all they've got in some regard. So we've got their contact details. We've sent the community bus out to them already to have conversations, or we've made those calls. So we're looking at broadening it so it's already beyond CHIS. Just about how far.
Great.
Nathan, before you go, is it naive of me to think we've got plenty of resources here because we've got a whole pile of library specialists who are not doing the face-to-face and they can do the outreach now?
No, look, essentially we are blessed in the position that we're not getting a lot coming through the front door. We've still got the holds, which is, I guess, our toe in the water for a click and collect. So that's still happening, which requires us to have people around. The issue we've got is that we're now trying so desperately to put everything into online resourcing. That takes a lot of time and effort rather than sort of doing a bit of both, which is what we did in the past. So in our efforts to do almost everything online, we don't have as many to do the home delivery and the outreach. But we're looking at juggling that at the moment. We've also got some casual staff who are essentially in the position of, we don't need them for what we used to need them for. That puts them in a very awkward financial position. So maybe there is something that we can use them for. They're on our books anyway, and it's about trying to provide that service.
And I'm assuming the online conversion stuff is a matter of days, weeks, not months. So once they get out of that, they'll be freed up.
Yeah, look, to me, there's an establishment phase which takes a lot of effort, and then it's a matter of just rolling that out, which takes less and less effort. For example, a Rhyme Time, which we've done the recording for Thursday, we could do 20 of them in a week and then just push them out 1 week at a time. But it's about getting that stuff. We needed a better camera to do that, and so we're just sort of pushing that stage. So the first of everything obviously takes a little bit.
And just got on library books, can you touch on street libraries, the ones we just installed?
Yeah, the street libraries, we've deliberately not promoted them right here, right now, because there's a risk that we're advertising something that's potentially unsafe, and that people can take a book from their home. They may not know if they're infected or they've touched the book, and then that sits in the community, as we're aware that reports vary, but the virus certainly remains live on hard surfaces for a number of days, whether it's 2 or 5. So we're not over promoting those at the moment. There's only, I think, 3 that have been installed at the moment.
Oh, okay, right.
They've all gone out to the community groups. The installation is still going to be one of those stage matters. I was only talking to Ben about it this afternoon about it's probably not the time to promote because we don't know what's in there.
But we were talking about a sign on it saying that the virus can last on surfaces for 2 days or something, just so let people know if they take a book just to quarantine it for a couple of days. Otherwise, we've got to lock them up, don't we, those three?
We can certainly look at that. I mean, we don't own that infrastructure. We don't own what's inside them, which is the beauty of that community empowerment model. However, I feel some form of responsibility, as I think we all do. So I think the signage is certainly a step in the right direction.
I'm friendly. Yeah.
We just simply be responsible. It's a warning. We're going to put a lot of warnings around the food about being careful about just
Something without skull and crossbones, I hope. Mark?
So I just had a couple of comments, but just one comment on that one around the street libraries. Given that there is only 3, could we just do something as simple as get those 3 individuals or groups a can of Glen 20 and get them to spray it every day? The virus can last up to 9 days at hard surface room temperature. So we know that, it's probably not going to last for 9 days, but it could last for 3 or 4 or 5. And so that just might be some sort of mitigation strategy around that. Just take it as a comment. As an option. I just had a couple of other things if I can. So,
they have to spray every page, though, wouldn't they? Potentially the virus is on every page.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah, they just coughed on it.
That's what. That's what the challenge for us.
Yeah.
Is, it's very hard to know that that's going to work. But if you quarantine a book for say 9 days, you'd hope it's died.
Yeah.
So that's one of the challenges we're facing.
And I've asked the CEO, I've asked the libraries specialists, Public Libraries Board, or somebody somewhere to form some policy around this. So it's the same in every library. Sorry, carry on.
If we mitigate the risk by this much rather than
Yes,
the whole, that's a bit of the story. Yes, you're right. So just a couple of things. I had a phone call today from a business owner in Mangold Road, really concerned about what council's doing for them. So I'm really happy to hear about the network prospect support, and I'll push that person in that direction.
Yes, please.
But there is an angst there. This person happens to be a landlord of several properties and is concerned that if the tenants are contacting them and they're not sure what to do, what they can provide for their tenants, but also what might be provided to them. So it's that sort of chain of supply almost that we need to consider. But anyway, network prospect sounds like it's got under control. So that's good.
We have a hardship policy that we've approved. It's in play.
Yeah.
Every rates notice says if you're having trouble paying, give us a call. But they might be a bit distant from their rates notice and they're hearing lots of noise. Just refer them to reception.
Yeah.
And just say, I want to talk about my rates payments. And the team will deal with it.
I think that the Zoom is really critical to attend by Zoom in the future.
No.
I said it'd be really good for us all to attend that by Zoom. I'm just really disappointed that the state government has taken a major international pandemic to change a very simple part of legislation that we've been calling for years. Yeah. I just want to make that statement. The question I have is for the CEO. The most important asset for our communities in terms of the council is our people. How are our people, which is your people, not ours, how are the staff going in terms of changing nature of work, having to work from home? I know most organisations who are going through this, there's a morale issue and, do I have a job issue? Just trying to get a bit of a steer just very broadly, how are people going?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Look, it's a great question. I think, like most workplaces, people are anxious. People are anxious about the fact that we've still got a front door open. We are having to ask for volunteers to go down there for, when I say crowd management, probably queue management. Those volunteers will stand up on the stairs and call out and say, would you mind using the sanitizer? We've, I certainly think the closure of the library was a massive wave of relief, and before we did that, there was a very strong ripple throughout the organisation that, we weren't acting swiftly enough. I think we do have people working from home. We've been pressure testing our systems. I think people have been very buoyant. I think the fact that we've worked not just with senior management team, but all staff to bring, a plethora of ideas forward, and that people like Emma going out of her own accord saying, look, I want to find out what restaurants are open. People are engaged. We want to help. We want to make a difference. I think there is some concern about how long this thing's going to go. And I'm sure that's shared right across the country. What I'm doing is I'm communicating with the staff on about every second day. I don't want to overwhelmed them with communication, but we're just saying this is what we're doing. I'll communicate with them after tonight. We had a planning workshop, got great feedback and congratulations on the work that we're doing. We'll continue to do that. People with comorbidities that put them at high risk are working from home at the moment. And that's, for example, Simon is working from home because he's got a serious comorbidity and we don't want to put him in harm's way. So, look, I think the staff see that we're doing all that we can to protect those who are particularly vulnerable. I think there's been, we've had to do all the work, health and safety stuff about, people checklists and working from home and all that. We've done it in a very organised way. Really, we're pressure testing our people and our systems to be able to start providing services from anywhere. I don't be interested in a comment from any of the directors, but I think really I'm pretty proud of the staff. In a pretty scary time, they've stepped up.
And can I just finish off just by acknowledging the leadership of the Mayor and the CEO in what is a really tricky time. I think all of us are affected in one way or the other. And I know in any organisation it's been a really tough couple of weeks, so thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Alison?
Just one more question. Do you foresee, because obviously we employ staff, but we also depend on a lot of contractual services and things like waste management. Do you foresee in the near future, after what's happening in Europe, any sort of supply chains that might affect us?
So I think we take that by it's a great question, case-by-case basis. One of the things that we really committed to do, and we had a chat to the Mayor quite a lot about this, is we do have a role in economic stimulus and keeping jobs, and that's why our response to the media today through the Mayor was, look, it's business as usual, let's get the infrastructure projects built, let's get the capital works underway, let's use our operational budget. Local governments are at the coalface in keeping people working, particularly outdoors where it's safer. Our view on our field staff is that they're going one per car out to places, no reason why they should stop. Supply chain issues for us really are what face everybody else. We can't get enough hand sanitizer for the building, we can't get masks, we can't get even decent temperature gauges. But the other supply issues aren't a problem at this point, and we will just face that on a case-by-case basis. But what we're hoping to do is that we don't create the supply chain problem, that we keep the economic momentum going at a time when, there isn't, we look down from the balcony down the street, it's pretty dead. We've got a huge role to keep our budget being spent on time and getting that stuff rolled out. So, and I hope, with the comments we've made to the media today through the Mayor, that people will realise that we take it very seriously, that we've got an economic role to play. Others?
Yes. With Zoom, so how do members of the public attend our meeting if we're all
I think the changes to legislation mean that we don't have to have the meetings open to the public anymore. I just want to check. Is that your understanding?
That's what I read today.
Yeah. So we don't need to concern ourselves about that. We could choose to have them open like they are now, but if there's a total lockdown, then none of us might be here. So that would be difficult. There was a move to try and get live casting of our meetings. Just bring us up to speed where that's at.
Well, we basically we are working on that now. Had anybody arrived tonight, they would at least seen your face, Mayor, and possibly people around the table.
Just out there?
There's a screen out there. I don't think anybody's there. Right? No. Certainly the legislation, as I read it, has exempted us in this period while it's considered not to have meetings in public because it's a public health crisis, and it would be, the opposite of what they want to achieve. I'm sure that when we get through this, what we'd like to do is find a way that people can come in online and watch us live through technology that's widely available. And so that would be part of what we'll be working on.
I can update you on that a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Essentially, this is a live stream now, so this is using Zoom. The way we can get that to work is essentially you can use Zoom by inviting people through a web link. So essentially we use that as a meeting tool by sending an email, hey Stephen, here's my link, equals all of a sudden he's in the meeting, essentially. We can put that on our website on every Tuesday night or whenever we choose. People can go onto the website, click the link, and as soon as that happens, we can then set that up that we can't hear them, but they can hear us, so that there's no interruption, whereas now Simon on Zoom can interrupt and participate. So that can happen from the next meeting because the tool exists, and it's really just a matter of a link for anyone to essentially invite themselves based on that.
Yep. Okay, thank you. And City of Adelaide are doing a similar system, have done for quite a while. So we're going to see how it can work. Try and attend one of their meetings by video link.
And
Chris?
just subsequently, comments, that I've been reading and other people have been online talking about and all that, is about, well, now we as a nation should be seriously looking at the economics of why aren't we more self-sufficient. Instead of sending products overseas and then we get the same products back from somebody else overseas, so I just hope David and some of you are in leadership positions that I think that's should be also starting to be looked at.
Yeah. Yes, there's some harsh economic realities in that, but yes, it is being commented on. Yeah. Just with the video links and the public's attendance, I might just ask you, CEO, if you can, and the team, have a bit of a think about how we are accountable in this next phase. Like, how would the public not just be able to see us, but ask us a question in public question time? That might be tricky, but how they could get a question to us before the meeting that we can ask in that session, so they can register a question with us. Just a few things like that in terms of there's other accountability measures.
So we put that up as a policy change that we look at to ask in writing and we can read it out.
Sorry, did you hear that down the end there? Yeah. Remarkable projection, CEO.
I can project more. Please wave if you can't hear it. Yes.
It's currently in place, so council has adopted the change in the public question time. So now the public can actually submit a question if it's 5 days prior, and then the mayor can read out the question and the answer, and the public does not need to be in attendance.
Okay, so that's really important. If you've got some members of the community that are really anxious, they think we're meeting in a closed room, they can't hold us to account, direct them to that. What about a deputation or a petition? A petition that right to us? What about if someone wanted to appear before us? How do we do that?
Well, technically they could, and they could actually appear on Zoom and stuff.
Yeah.
So whoever the Zoom administrators could let them speak.
Yes.
Easy. Okay. Yep. Thank you. Good.
And sorry, I'm just sort of thinking as we're going along. We still have our chat, online chat during office hours as well. So I think, if people actually want to hear a voice, instead of being confined to their four walls of TV, but, for information, that's something else.
Yeah. All good things to promote. Any other questions about where we're at with our response to the virus and what we're doing next?
Well, I think it has been pretty well covered, but I was going to ask whether we do need to look at suspending public question time for an indefinite period, but I think with your answer before, it's pretty much that you're still happy to go ahead with it, just with obviously promoting that people ask questions on more so on notice and appearing. Is that what I'm hearing, or does it actually need to be looked at? Putting it on hold.
As Mayor and Chair, I'm happy to take their questions as written and read them out in that section of the agenda and vocalise the response on the live feed. I think it's important that we stay accountable.
That's what I'm thinking.
I hope we don't end up in a bunker making decisions out of limelight. I don't think that's healthy.
Hey, Rachel.
Yeah, that could be where next meeting. Well,
Good opportunity.
upgrade.
But it's small.
Give it a use. That's like 4 of us would be able to measure that. Just in terms of, there haven't been any questions, but just in case there are around financial assistance of any kind, at this stage we're sticking with our hardship policy, and I've spoken to the CEO and I said, look, just keep in touch. There's been very, very few queries at this stage. We've heard a few more through Mark tonight. but I expect that the CEO will update us quite fully at our next council meeting as to the level of inquiry and what's happening. And if he needs to call a special meeting prior to then I'll encourage him to do so to deal purely with financial matters. In reality, the third quarter was billed and was due and payable by the 2nd of March, so well before many of the restrictions have been put in place. So I don't think people could seriously say that they had a problem with that due to the COVID-19. There might be other reasons that might be legitimate. The fourth quarter is the one where the bills are going to go out 2nd of June, and that might make a whole pile of people very, very anxious. So we expect that we'll have a heightened level of response around about that time. And the first quarter of next financial year will also be an issue as well. So I've asked the CEO when our next budget meeting is. It's the 31st of March. I've recommended, and I'll recommend to you, we keep another Tuesday free, because I don't think we'll nail the budget in 1 week. I think we're going to have a look at it over a couple of weeks. We already were not on target, and faced with what we've now got, it's likely that our revenue raising will be affected by people's inability to pay, at least in the first quarter of next year, and we'll have some legacy from the last quarter of this year. So I've asked them to bring some options to us to just think through things, so it's not all cold on the 31st of March. So just letting you know that's what's happening behind the scenes to get us ready for our next budget discussion. And also, in case you get asked by people what we're doing around financial relief, I think that the response I've given the media today is we already have a really good hardship policy in place. Encourage people to come and talk to us as soon as possible, and that we will be considering these matters at our next couple of budget workshops. Okay, so, yeah.
Just a question on valuations. I know we were going through a review in our area of Surveyor General. Now, obviously, it could be a situation where, you know, values of properties might go down by 30% in the next 2-3 years. So is that a state government issue?
Yes, and there was a briefing about that. That's been cancelled. Unfortunately, they could have done it via Zoom, but it's been cancelled. But I'm not fussed about the valuation changes provided they're uniform. So I understand they're doing whole council areas. That's okay. So if everyone goes up, say, doubles their property value, their rates bill won't change much from this year because everybody's gone up the same. If it all goes down, it'll be kind of the same. To do half the city in 2 different years, as we've had happen, I don't know, how many, 10 years ago we had that? I think we had a 12% lift in Fitzroy and Thorngate and nothing anywhere else. It was just terrible.
Was it a few properties?
Yeah, a few probably, yeah. It was just very disproportionate. That's when it gets difficult. So I'm hoping that the process is okay, that it's uniform, but we might get an update, I think, see if we can, on the status of it and how it will affect valuations. And if there's any early warning signs, we want to know them well in advance. Because if we want to make dispensation per suburb area or something, we have to put it in the draft budget, and it needs a special arrangement to be put in place.
On the matter of budget, I just sent a comment through, and without strategic planning, whatever that might happen. But in terms of budget, I mean, obviously it was pre-COVID-19 when the staff framed their suggested priority, you know, the numbering of priority numbering of things. So I'm just thinking, I mean, we most probably have to have a reordering of perhaps our sort of priorities, and
yes.
You know, we might be putting more priority on things that are shovel ready, you know, ready.
Yes.
So
I've asked the team to prepare exactly that for us to look at next week. Yeah, and I've suggested that we might put more emphasis on paying for designers to give us a design for the Broadview Footy Club, for instance, so that we can actually put a grant application up. Because at this stage, it's a little weak because we've only got a concept, you know, a fluffy kind of rectangle on a big square of an oval. So, whereas it's not currently in the budget. So we need to think about how we not just cope now, but how we get ready for what stimulus might come. I have to say might. Any other questions on COVID-19? Okay, thank you for that. Good discussion. Thanks, CEO, for the extra information. Very much appreciated. Session. We now have reports for decision. Item 10.1, appointment of independent member to the Audit Committee, recommendations on page 1.
And we need to move that report.
Oh, sorry. That might be helpful. Yes, thank you very much. Given I asked you to pull it forward, thank you for the reminder. Yes, item 12.4. Let me just find it again. On recommendations on page 277, somebody wished to move that we receive and note that report.
Move that way.
Councillor Rip, wish to speak to it any further? Do you have a seconder? Councillor Nguyen, wish to speak to it any further? No, any further debate? Put that, all those in favour? Against, it's carried unanimously. Thank you for that. Sorry for that. 10.1, appointment of independent member Audit Committee, recommendations on page 1. Somebody happy to move it? So the backup, wish to speak to it?
Well, just briefly, the Audit Committee is a really important function, and as well as looking at financials, it's also looking at our risk profiles. I think it's really important to use that committee as much as possible.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Rip, wish to speak to it?
Ditto the comments.
Any further debate? Put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 10.2, Galway Avenue, Jellicoe Street, Wren Street roundabout proposal, pages 10 to 38. Recommendations on pages 10 and 11. We obviously remind you we've got the director on the telephone if we need him. Is somebody happy to move
that way?
Councillor Rip, wish to speak to it?
Yes. Sorry, my iPad's just in front of you. Look, councillors, I really encourage you to support the recommendations that are on the in front of us here. It's probably the item I've probably got the most feedback on in the election campaign and since, particularly in that precinct. So many people have told me, and I've sort of had some near misses at the intersection myself, and I've received so many feedback from people that live both in and around that precinct, and people that drive also through that are local and use that precinct, that it is so unsafe. Particularly if you haven't done it, I really do encourage you to try and turn right from Ream Street onto Galway, and you practically can't without going all the way out into Galway and would like if there's a car there. We see that there's a roundabout up the road at Galway. Well, the feedback I've had overall is we've got a roundabout up the road at Galway and Colin Grove. We've got a roundabout at Galway and McInnes, and that seems to work quite well. That intersection at Galway, Reims and Jellicoe is incredibly, incredibly unsafe. And it's not just for people that are trying to turn right from Reims to Galway or Jellicoe to Galway. It's also for people that are sitting on Galway and misjudge the amount of time you actually need to turn right from Galway onto Reims. It is really unsafe, and we shouldn't just look at the accidents that are reported. We should also consider near misses. And I received so many feedback from people in the community that they've had so many near misses at that intersection. We also need to consider, I know Alan and I talked about it when we were looking at Rutherglen and Edwin. It's not just the reported accidents, it's all the minor accidents that happen that go unreported as well. Plenty of people have minor accidents they don't bother reporting because they sort it out with the people then and there, and they don't bother reporting it. Yeah, it is really, really unsafe, and I strongly encourage. And I'm glad that the feedback of the community, I'm glad that the feedback from the administration in this report backs up what the community have told me about the need for a roundabout, and the roundabout being the ultimate solution. I do thank the staff for bringing back a report, obviously, that looks at being lower cost, because I was shocked at the first time we saw the report. I know it was withdrawn, but the sheer cost of that was going to cost for the first time. I feel a bit more comfortable with the figures that I'm seeing now compared to the first time. I strongly encourage you to support this motion, and thank you.
Right, a seconder. Patrick, would you speak to it?
Yeah, just to reiterate some of those points, but also just we are budget conscious, and I think that was really good that we looked at that. It's also about beautification, so having a tree in that location I think would be really good, as opposed to maybe a sculpture that we certainly had some reaction to in that. So a nice specimen of a tree would be wonderful. So I mean, as well as the safety aspect, it's also beautification and greening our streets, which is part of our strategic policy. So.
Thank you. Any further debate? Deputy Mayor.
I support the motion as well, and I also support the sentiment by Councillor De Backer around beautification. I do hope that we're not sitting here in 6 months' time wondering why we planted trees that are now 6 foot high and therefore create line of sight issues. So I'm sure the Director has got that under control and will choose appropriate foliage so that we beautify our streets but we don't cause further issues. Just saying.
Thank you. Councillor Grigg.
Thank you. I support the motion, however, small however. There's a contradiction in the recommendations that I'm just not comfortable with, and this is new ground, not more ground for those of you who always hear me about putting things into the budget in the future and we'll worry about it then. I'm still concerned about that, but I'm leaving that one alone right now. But recommendation 2 says that council endorses in principle the construction of a roundabout. So we're saying we endorse a roundabout and we want to construct it in principle. In item 4, we talk about going out to consultation or community engagement, advising that council is considering the construction of a roundabout. Now, those two things are not consistent in my mind. I think we need to be really honest with the community and say, we're going to put a roundabout here, unless there's a very good reason for us not to, we're doing it. That's option 1. Option 2 is we don't endorse a roundabout, but we endorse going out to community asking what they want. And I'm not sure that this recommendation is actually, it's doing a bit of both, and I'm uncomfortable with that. I support the notion of it. It's needed, we know it's needed, but I just think we're putting a lot of effort into going and talking to people with something that we've actually already endorsed. So I'd maybe just seek comment on that from the appropriate director.
I kind of wonder whether part 2 is not required because it's premature in a way.
Well, it is premature.
Yeah.
Because I presume we'll need to actually make a decision about the roundabout at some future meeting, because if the community came back and said we want light, just for example, we want lights or we want humps, we don't want a roundabout, and we've already endorsed a roundabout and put it in a long-term financial plan, which I'm still concerned about, then community consultation all for nothing, really.
Good question. CEO, there's a question within there as to whether the order's a bit out of...
It seems to me, order, Chair. Can I go to the Director?
Absolutely.
Yes. Simon?
Yes, through the Chair. The reasoning for the, yes, get council to endorse it in principle, and then why we're saying in item number 4 for consideration only for the community is because, yes, we want council to endorse in principle the roundabout, but we're going to consider funding it in 2021. That's where the consider is. It may not get funded for a number of years, but council will still endorse in principle the concept of creating a roundabout there. So that was the reasoning why we've placed the word consider in item recommendation number 4.
Sorry, the question more about recommendation number 2, where it appears we've already made the decision to do a roundabout, and option 3, not option 1, before asking the community, who I presume are going to show all 3 options to.
No. Through the Chair, we're going to go to consultation on the roundabout proposal only, option 3. So we want council to endorse that is our preferred option, and then we go out to consultation on that option 3.
So, Councillor Grigg, back to you. Does that answer your question?
It answers my question, but I don't think it answers the issue. So I might propose an amendment in that case, see how it goes. Sorry, Jazz, just thinking off the top of my head here, but we could say something along the lines of the council. Sorry, just I've still got another couple of minutes, I presume, there. Just let me think this through. The option is we could take out recommendation 2 in its entirety. But it sounds like from the director he needs some guidance on which of those 3 options we have a preference for and what we're going to consult on. If option 2 actually said that we want to consult on option 3, which is the roundabout, that would make more sense to me. So maybe taking it out altogether would still work. And then in recommendation 4 we say the council conducts community engagement on the provision of a roundabout, or words to that effect.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, please.
That option 4 become option 2, and then after the word roundabout, we just merely insert in brackets option 3.
Yep.
Stays intact. that item stays as item 3, but after the word roundabout, we put in option 3 in brackets again.
Yep.
And I think that, and delete option 2, I think that's
Delete option 2.
sensible.
Yep. Okay, I'm happy with that.
And can I just clarify, Director, that in item 5, as it's currently item 5, when you say long-term financial plan 21-22, that you're suggesting that project be allocated for that financial year within the long-term financial plan?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Back to you.
And just for the record, I'm happy with those amendments. I think that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
So could I ask the question then, are we committing, maybe I'm asking the same question different way, are we committing $388,000 in the capital budget for that year for this project? And does that take into account any CPI increases between now and then?
The word is consider, which is our normal language, I think.
Yeah.
And it's not the financial year we're about to work on in our annual business plans, the year beyond that. So does that answer that question? I'm happy to go to the staff if you want a bit more guidance.
Well, I just think, I mean, this will get up tonight, presumably we're all for it. What it does is commits us, given we're going out to community saying we're going to do it, we've just committed $400,000, which will probably turn into $400,000 by the time we do it, as a, yeah.
I should say 388.
I might have exaggerated a little, but it will be more than that because it always is. But we're committing that in that year's budget by putting in the financial, the long-term financial. But I just checked that question.
Well, see, I understand the concern, but it does say consider allocating it. And I understand. I guess one of the problems is we go out and consult a lot on infrastructure projects. And the flip side of that is that we don't consult on a project until we're sure that the money's allocated. So it is a bit of a big situation. I just rest on the term consider allocating $388,000 for the long term. Many things, frustration might be, where you go to the communities. We want to do this. We want you to look at it, be aware of how much it costs, and then we council results. It's a great idea. I build it. We can't afford it. And there are a lot of the issues that we face pretty much from what I consider many infrastructure projects. But we have no choice but to consult, or we should consult. We have no choice but to give accurate costings, as much as they are today. And we have no choice but to respond and say, look, having looked at these options, this option is the best, albeit quite expensive option, not as bad as option 1. And I don't know. Okay, so that. Happy with that?
I'm happy with that. I look forward to watching the local government elections in 2022 in the West Ward.
Well, thank you. So we have a proposed amendment. I'm going to do what I normally do, which is ask the mover whether they're happy to incorporate that change.
Just because I've just flashed over, I was going to read what it says. So we've only altered part 2 and 3, is that right?
Part 2, as in the papers, is gone.
Yep.
Part 4 has become part 2 to reflect that the next phase would be to consult the community.
Yep.
And it's on option 3.
I'm happy to incorporate that.
Thank you. That's a yes. A seconder. Happy to give a yes. And now seek leave of the meeting to incorporate. All those in favour? Yes. Thank you. That's unanimous. Then now becomes the motion. Councillor Groot used up all the 5 minutes. Councillor Barnett and then Pearce.
Yes. There's nothing that improve the amendment to make sure that this may be one of those in our shovel-ready type projects.
Yes.
Or so is that fine as it is? That meets any.
I'll ask the question. I have been thinking that, in my view, it is, and if we had to move a rescission motion to pull it forward, I think we'd be okay with that. But CEO, does this preclude us putting this forward for stimulus?
I'd have to, through you, Chair, I'd have to ask the Director how quickly should a stimulus package become available? How quickly could we move in terms of getting it shovel ready? Looks
Through the
like
chair, yeah, sure. If council resolved in principle to go ahead with option 3, it would take approximately 3 weeks for us to come up with a detailed design. A normal tender process is around a 5-week process. We could get some exemptions under that if we had to really fast track. But normally it'd be around if we got the go ahead tomorrow, it'd be around a 10-week process before we could actually turn some soil. That's under normal conditions. As I mentioned before, under the procurement policy, we could ask for an exemption, and we could do the consultation process during that 10-week program if we did want to fast track the project.
Councillor Barnett, you're okay. Councillor Pearce.
Look, it's obviously needed for safety, but like Councillor Green said, I find it difficult to project this far out, personally. And I think when we're going to go out to the community with an engagement, it'll be taken that it's going to happen. And you get egg on your face 12 months later when we haven't got the money in the budget to do it. So to me, it's just, like we're going to have difficulty doing the 2021 budget in the next couple of weeks. And it's a large chunk of money I know we're not allocating it, we're considering it. But to me, it's a long way out. It looks like it's going to get up, fine, but just like Councillor Green said, in that ward, they're going to think, great, beautiful, we're going to have this roundabout happening in a couple of years or 18 months. And we don't know if that's going to even happen. We're just going through the COVID discussion tonight. To me, it's just too far out to be penciling it in.
Thank you. Just briefly from the chair, I agree with all those comments, even though some of them sound contrary to each other. The issue is we've got a traffic management issue there it's kind of not pleasant. There haven't been fatalities and serious injuries, but it's really, if you look at the configuration, it's not good. It would be part of beautifying that strip, which is an opportunity to put another tree in. I like all that stuff, but fundamentally, it's something that we should be on top of for safety reasons. The issue about attracting stimulus money requires us to be ready to do it. And it's always better to have a project that's gone through community engagement, that the political risk is taken out of it, that the design work's done, so we're ready to launch. And I think this is important to get that in that position. In terms of timing, I take Councillor Pearce's point. We can't accurately forecast what's going to happen in the 21-22 budget. It might be that it has to be deferred. But I think it's important to say to the public, it won't be done tomorrow, and it won't be done next year. In other words, thinking about the year after next financial year. And if we have to change it, then change it. But I have an expectation that it will be done in the next 12 or so months. I think that's important on its own. If we can pull it forward, I'd be very happy to go and apologise to the public that we're going to do it quicker rather than later. But if we can't meet our budgets going forward, then we have to defer. It's like anything else that we have to defer. It's a very large item, and I'm comfortable with this position. I think it's reasonable given the context of where we're at, but I really urge people to support it because I think we need to have some more shovel-ready projects to attract stimulus funding. And it's better if it's in the out years, to be frank. So you can say I can actually look rather than get something subsidised that's actually imminent, which is very, very hard. Any further debate? Councillor Nguyen.
You've taken it to consultation. We need to give the community members the information that it won't happen immediately this year, next year. So just give them the idea that we are considering it, and when we have the budget, when we have the resources, so that they are aware that the expectations are.
Very sensible. Okay, I think that concludes debate because there's no one else to speak. Councillor Ripp, you wish to sum up?
I will just thank everyone for their contributions tonight on the item. Really do appreciate it. And it was, I should have obviously mentioned too about the beautification and greening, so thank you for that, Councillor De Backer. And also just wanted to note, I've had a chat, obviously Councillor Harris can't be here tonight due to family reasons. He's up the roundabout as well and wants to see it happen, and he understands as well that it's going to be pushed out by the extra financial year.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? Is carried. Item 10.3, Menzies Crescent Traffic Management, recommendations on page 39, so we're happy to move it in its current form. Mr. Group, wish to speak to it?
Look, just to say, this has been an issue that I brought up in council, I think back in 2016, dare I say it was that long ago, maybe 2017. So it has been floating around for a little while, and I thank the director for bringing it to some sort of conclusion here tonight. The issue at the time was around traffic speeds in Menzies Crescent, particularly around the playground, and back then we were looking at upgrading the playground, which we've now done, and so the numbers of people using that playground, albeit the last couple of weeks accepted, has been largely increasing over that time. I think that with the 40 km/h zone, that will go some way of trying to manage that traffic speed within that area. One of the issues that the department, DIPTI had, I think at the time, was having a 50 zone, a 40 zone, a 60 zone, and then potentially a 25 or a 30 zone in Menzies Crescent. That was kind of one speed limit too many. So I think the 40 km/h zone is a good way to test whether that doesn't change people's behaviour in that particular space. I'm comfortable with that as an outcome, but would want to actually make sure it stays as a watching brief post the implementation of 40 km/h zone, presumably we'll get to that point, and we'll get to that point soon, and understand what that's doing to the speed of cars in that area, particularly as we want to try and ramp up more of the public events in that particular precinct. So I'm happy to endorse the recommendations there, and I think it'd be very interesting to see what 40 km/h zone does do for that particular area.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tobacco, wish to speak?
No, I'm just glad Councillor Roots brought it to our attention. I think it's a really important space and risk management for our community.
Thank you. Further speakers?
Excuse me, Mayor.
Sorry, Director.
Simon here. Do you mind if I... Sorry. Seeing this report was written 2 weeks ago, it's just come to my attention, recommendation number 2 recommends we undertake speed and traffic volume data in April 2020. Seeing traffic is significantly reduced at the moment, seeing people are working from home and there's no football season, this SAFL football season, that maybe we remove the month of April and we just undertake the data when considered more appropriate.
Thank you, Director. And in answer to your question, no, you can't speak, but thank you for that. You only speak in answer to a question. Gee, I wish I'd asked that question because that's a very obvious thing to do. Can I ask the mover and seconder if they're happy to incorporate that change?
Absolutely.
Seconder, can I seek leave of the meeting if happy to incorporate that change? Seems sensible. It's incorporated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
That kind of answers my question. I think part one of the report's good. This seems to have been on the table for a long time. It seems to be obviously since 2014. In the gender review meeting earlier on tonight, we talked about a forgotten plan to link up Nailsworth with Maynooth Road with Prospect Road through Prospect Oval, and that may well have been one of the considerations for assuming that we will need more traffic management in this space. So given that that's off the table, given that I can't recall there being too many issues and the 40 km/h speed limit will certainly change things, I just wonder whether we're overcooking this whole situation. I'm not sure what the data says around incidents or near misses, but I'm happy to support it on the basis that particularly item number or recommendation number 2 has been modified, but I don't know. There may well be other areas of our city that are equally as potentially dangerous from a crossing major roads point of view. Churchill Road, for example, Cane Reserve, with the build-up of people living around that space. There is nothing there like a much bigger road and at 60 km/h. So is this the biggest priority we have in our city with regards to reviewing road safety and traffic volumes and those kind of things like that? I don't know, but since this has been on the table for so long, it probably deserves to be finished off and completed. So that's a long-winded way of saying I support the motion, but I'm not sure it's the most important thing that we should be doing right now.
Thank you.
In this space.
Any further debate? Councillor Groot, you need to sum up.
Just to thank the Deputy Mayor for his support for the motion. I wasn't sure which way you were going to go. But just to clarify, this actually got brought about after a couple of near misses that people came to speak to me about. It wasn't in relation to, back then we were thinking about where Painsy might be, we were thinking about big redevelopments of RSL, cricket and football, we were thinking about a whole lot of other things. That was actually incidental to this particular issue that came up as a result of some near misses. So just for information, but hopefully we'll still support it.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. I was looking at it. 10.4 Queensland box trees, long-term options and replacement species, recommendation page 45. And just to note, there is a typo on the top of page 52 where it refers to the removal and replacement cost per tree is $745 per tree. If you read the whole paragraph, there's a figure for replacement at the end of the paragraph. The first line should say the 745 is only for removal of the tree, just to clarify that. Having that clarification doesn't change the recommendation. Is somebody happy to move it? Councillor Barnett?
Yes, I think this is something that I had brought up. Yes. That I think it's a reasonable compromise. I think the report has explained the situation well, and I think most of the problem has been the berries and the dangerous nature of the berries. So I think if, although it says continues to investigate options to increase the service standard, I would have liked that to have actually just increase the service standard, because otherwise we could investigate options and then still say, oh, well, we're only going to continue to do it as we are normally. So that was my only concern, that we're not actually going to increase the service standard and actually go ahead and do it, because I think that's what most people would expect to happen. So I don't know how I'd go for an amendment on part 3, because I'm not sure if it's in direct opposition to the intent.
As the mover, with difficulty I'd suggest. And I just draw your attention to page 49, where the current management and maintenance procedures are detailed. So just have a quick look at that. Is there anything else you'd like to say in moving it, Councillor Barnett?
49, so seasonally. Yes, well, it's sort of, to me, it's, well, I suppose what I can do is go ahead with it, and then I can just raise it another time if the service standard isn't, reaching the required effect. Right. So I'll move as is.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ripp, I think I saw it just momentarily before. Councillor?
Yes, I'd like to speak. Thank you. Look, both, particularly with the Queensland box trees, both Councillor Harris and I support the recommendations. I would obviously like to see them remain. However, I do want to see an increase in the service standard of the street sweeping. I do acknowledge page 49. Both of us, both Councillor Harris and myself in the East, have seen berries that look like they've been around for a lot longer than a 10 to 15 day cycle. So I know what's in the report, but I guess what we're saying is what's in the report isn't matching what the feedback is on the street, and particularly what we've seen. So I don't know if that can just be monitored, particularly if I'm assuming we subcontract out some of that service for that street sweeping, but if we can just monitor that, because we've seen plenty of examples where the berries are left for a lot longer than a 10 to 15 day cycle. So very happy with the intent to not proactively remove the trees, but we definitely want to have that service standard strictly monitored. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Backer.
Look, I'm really happy that it's landed at this point where it's basically looking on a case-by-case basis, and I think we're doing that across the city. As we saw that sort of sweeping approach to the white cedar trees, and thank Deputy Mayor Larwood for bringing that one up and bringing a deputation, because it can be quite traumatic when you lose a tree in the street, but also acknowledging there's a risk matrix involved. And I think if we've got a policy across the whole city for all trees, and we've got this whiz-bang new policy about the green tunnel, I think it'll be great for the whole city to have that consistency, the right tree in the right spot.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Group.
Just very briefly, picking up on the issue about service standards, at one of our recent meetings, I think we agreed that some of the savings out of one of the budget lines around trees, I'm just trying to remember which one it was going to go into additional street sweeping.
White cedar?
White cedar.
Just Councillor Group has the floor.
Thank you. And so I just want to point out that option 3 is good, I support it, but there is another piece of work that should be happening to look at freeing up some of that budget into what's effectively going to be increased service standards for street sweeping as part of the reduction of the budget for white cedars. So I'm just saying that as a comment, it's not a question, but I just want to tie those things together and agree. I think this is a really good idea. I've had a number of people over the years who don't want their tree to go, which is nicer than the other way around. And so this is a really sensible way of going. So thank you.
Thank you. Just from the Chair, Director, can I ask your question? Do you audit these management maintenance procedures? Because I would tend to agree that I've seen plenty of these gum nuts hanging around for a lot longer than 6 days.
Through the Chair, we can do an audit to ensure, to answer Councillor Ripp's question, we don't outsource our street sweeping, we do it all in-house. Occasionally, if a street sweeper goes down a street, for example, and there are a number of cars in the street, it cannot get to the gutter. So there will be at times where it appears that we haven't been able to street the sweep. Often it's the reason because of cars. But I'm happy to do an audit of our program and ensure that we're meeting those standards, service standards.
Sorry, I should have been more specific. Thank you, Director, for that question. I'm talking specifically about gum nuts on footpaths, and there shouldn't be any obstruction to giving them a blow off into the curb. I understand a parked car might obstruct the sweeper, but the team are pretty good at blowing under the parked car to get it out the sweeper. So it's the footpaths. So can you perhaps, as a suggestion, just make sure someone keeps an eye on whether they're actually done or not, according to the streets that you've provided here and the white cedar ones and whatever else. It's just a suggestion.
Happy to, thank you.
Okay. Any further debate? All right, Councillor Barnett, do you wish to sum up?
No, we discussed the main points and yes, the emphasis in my mind should be on the footpath. That seems to be where people walk and tend to slip, not so much in the gutter.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. Next item is LED street lighting proposal. Advised by the CEO this is being withdrawn. Thank you. Just going to give us a brief insight into.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, when the paper went up, we have yet to receive more material information about making the return on investment more attractive. Without that, we shouldn't be putting that proposal.
Thank you. And I'm advised LGASA is working on a better deal with SAPN, and that final rate hasn't been agreed yet. So that will come back to the CEO at some point. Okay, thank you. 10.6, Doctor, question?
When we have some indication, obviously we are going through a budget process, can we have some indication when it's likely this will come back? Because, yeah, that's going to affect what we do for the budget as well.
My understanding is it's waiting on an adjudication from the National Energy Regulator, who's the only body that can adjudicate between LGASA and SA Power Networks. So they have all the evidence, they have the positions from each party, they're just waiting to make the determination. It's possible to be ready for this budget, but it might be tricky given the timing and what else is happening that's obviously more of a priority. Yeah, so that's where it's at. 10.6, dog registration fees, recommendation on page 71. Someone happy to move it? Councillor Rick, wish to speak to it? Do a seconder? Councillor Nguyen, do you wish to speak to it? Any further debate? I put it to the meeting. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 10.7, Small Street Activation Policy Recommendations, page 76, 77. Somebody happy to move it in its current form?
Yes.
Councillor Barnett, sorry, it's hard to see your arms behind the Deputy Mayor because he is just awesome. No, he said it's just in the way. Councillor Barnett has moved it, you to speak to it.
Yes, I had looked at this, the Unley model previously, so I'm actually really pleased to see that it's come before us through various circumstances. And also that it is a great problem, particularly when you get, for example, a street like Allen Street, which is now going to have, well, I don't think there'd be hardly any of the normal house blocks there. They'll all be apartment buildings in the whole street eventually, I think, except with perhaps one or two exceptions. So it's dramatically changed in a reasonably short time, the nature of the street, and the Mayor and I actually went down there and spoke to residents to try and get a feel for it, and tried to navigate through a poorly designed parking situation, etc. But also, whenever we have anything, and it could be down at the skate park, that's, you know, an occasion, and usually it's at least once a year that we hold something down there with one of the radios, I think, or, you know, we have an event. And so it is absolutely chock-a-block, which doesn't happen in too many other of our smaller streets. I think that I agree with it seems to be a very, it's already got like proof in the pudding, so to speak, with what Unley's been doing, and under, you know, very similar perhaps circumstances to our own city. And so I think it links in with our like green neighbourhoods, with a lot of our like community development and street activation concepts. Yeah, I think I really commend that we go ahead with this pilot, and hopefully then if it's you know, as successful as what we'd like it to be, it could be looked at elsewhere in the city. So I really commend this to you.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor Pearce, wish to speak to it?
No, I'll just reiterate what Councillor Barnett said. It looks like a great plan, and I've looked at what Unley has done as well, and small streets could definitely do with that upgrade.
Thank you.
Just one thing though, I'm just wondering, in point 3 is that we're going to get submissions and quotes from qualified people. Have we not got people in the organisation that could perhaps take on board that? There's a question.
Thank you. CEO, in light of what else is happening, do we have those skills and those resources that are?
I just need to refer that chair to the director again, who's fully aware of our skills.
Director?
Through the chair, we have a landscape architect on staff at the moment. She is on maternity leave, so therefore we have a part-time landscape architect with us at the moment. English is a second language to her, so at the moment she doesn't possess the skills to be able to deliver such a program where the community engagement component is so important. So therefore we're seeking how much it would cost for a consultant to provide that service to us.
Councillor Pearce?
I take that on board, but
That doesn't vote.
just wondering after we have the City of Unley workshop and we see what is required, just how much detail is needed and whether we go back to that person to address what if you could or couldn't handle it. We make a decision on that basis before we go out to get quotes.
So you're asking a question about whether the consultant will be engaged before our workshop or after?
After the workshop, when we see and agree with what we want to do in those small streets and what will work. That's right.
I'm just seeing if you're asking a question or not, but you're not asking a question.
No, what I'm saying is, well, answer your question is after the workshop, we put it to that person whether they think they'd be in consultation with Simon perhaps, whether they'd be up to the program. If they feel they're insufficient to do that, then we go out and get quotes.
We need something in the recommendation.
Rather than doing that beforehand.
Thank you. I'll briefly speak to this item to get clarity around the issue. So I'll ask the question, CEO, Director, is the intention that we wait for that workshop before seeking submissions, or is the intention that we seek submissions parallel to the workshop? The former speaker has made a good point that perhaps we understand more fully what's required before we write up a brief and spend money.
Having heard Councillor Pearce's very good point, I think we'll be looking to see what we need and then seeing if we can internally.
Very sensible. Thank you for your answer. Any further debate? Councillor De Backer.
I was going to amendment. So just reiterate to the question. So that was going to be after or at the same time as this workshop for Unley? So 6 submissions.
3 would be, the CEO's assured us that 3 would not happen before 2.
Okay. The other thing that I wanted to add was an amendment to the motion in regards to, now this is just for clarity for us. So for those of you that maybe weren't on the previous council, the resident, it was actually a former employee who used to work for the department. And I believe she works with or works for Unley, which is also mentioned. So just as a bit of a clarity for us, I'm proposing that at point 4, that council refer the selection criteria and process for shortlisting of streets to the audit committee to provide comment on the appropriateness of the criteria and process in selecting the locations for the pilot program. Now I just want to, so if you look at the Unley report, on page, I think it is the attachment, I'm just going to scroll through, on attachment 6, page 88 on my records, it actually says they've got 9 living streets. So they basically look at all the streets, align it with their strategic plan, that it looks at Goodwood, Unley, Wayville, Unley, Forestville, across the whole city. All of these are selected in the West Ward, and it hasn't actually gone out for consultation. So, you know, just, I think, you look, if Alan bubbles up to be the pilot project, so I think that's great, but I think I'd rather refer that to the audit committee, just for that. And point 5 that I'd like to raise as an option. Let me have a look. The council encourages the Allen Street residents to apply for the quick response public art grants to address amenity in the area in the short term. And I know, having been on council for 5 or 6 years, one of the best things about council is actually getting things done either outside of council or with the least amount of council involvement. So the quick response art grants can create a lot of interest and amenity in the short term, get some buzz around. Unfortunately, the timing is hideous because we've actually got a new cafe just opened on Pym Street. Really sad. There was an opportunity there to extend the footpath, and we didn't, with the grass being put in. So that could have been a great opportunity given the current circumstances. That's very challenging. So I think if there's opportunities in that precinct, we can get some satisfaction earlier on. In the current climate and financial climate, I think that would be a really good communication back to the resident in the interim. So I'd encourage you to support those amendments.
Thank you. As is my tradition, I'll ask mover if they're happy to incorporate. Councillor Barnett. Just a simple yes or a no.
I'm struggling with what criteria or experience the audit committee would have with this sort of selection process.
So it's a no.
Well, I'm really struggling with that.
So it just has to be a yes or a no. If it's more complex, then it can't be a yes.
And part 5, the Allen Street.
Sorry, councillor, it's a no. Unless you say yes, it's therefore a no. And that means it just becomes an amendment. We just go through a debate process.
Well, no, and because the Allen Street residents already have started doing part of Irving Street.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I don't want you to debate the amendment yet unless you want to, but I need a seconder first. So is somebody happy to second the amendment? Councillor Ripp, did you wish to speak to the amendment?
Well, look, just to also add, and this could be up to another speaker, I just wanted to clarify, if you just move up on the screen to point 3, do we actually need something else also put in there to say that we'll be looking at our internal resources first, or is that just a given that the staff will do that before going to the external, following on from Councillor Pearce's comments before? Is it just a given, or do we need to have it also put in the recommendation that we will actually look to our internal resource first? Can I just get some clarification on that?
I thought we did, but I'm happy to ask the CEO. Again, it is, CEO, as the councillor points out, it is in part 3 of the recommendation that we will at some point go out to an external resource rather than internal resource. I just want to clarify how you interpret that. Should we not need to go to an external resource?
Well, Chair, as it's written, it would indicate that we would intend to go out. I've heard the feedback from elected members. I can understand that we would certainly consider our internal resources first once we've gone through the process. If people would feel more comfortable with the change that says something like, should it be required or should we not have internal resources, that's fine as well. But I can give you an undertaking that our approach will be that we will have internal resources, except that may instruct us not to.
Thank you. As a seconder to the amendment, it's not within your ability to change that, but somebody else listening might want to formalise that with a second amendment should they need to be reassured about that. So we'll take that in time. As a seconder to the amendment, you'll speak any further to the amendment?
Just to say I support the addition. I think it's really good.
Okay. Any further speakers to the amendment? Deputy Mayor.
I don't support the amendment. Allen Street residents are more than one person. One person has driven the concept because they're skilled and experienced in this area because it's their profession. Whether they worked for us previously, which they did, or whether they worked on the council, they have driven it because they see an opportunity. If we look at the first paragraph of the executive summary, I'm not going to read it out, but I will read the first, well, maybe if everyone wants to refer back to that, that's the exact sentiment that the individual is trying to elicit through coming to us with this idea. It's been picked up by the street. Councillor Burnett and myself met down there, well over 12 months ago, I'd say now, and there was probably 30 people in that meeting. It's a lot more than one person. I think they've done really well to collect together and drive this concept, and any other street in the whole of our city could do the same thing if they wanted to. So it's not the fact that they've got insider running to how to do it or whatever it might be. It's the fact that that street, that small street, has been more heavily impacted by urban infill than any small street in the whole of the city. If anyone else can point one out to me, then I'd be happy for them to do so, and I'll change my mind on that. But they want to turn that street into the model that we're looking for, and that's to reactivate a side street which would have been just a drive-through and a shortcut for many, many years into something which, when we can get together as a group again in the not-too-distant future, hopefully it will become a neighbourhood. So I think that despite the changes suggested to Part 3 of the original motion, I absolutely do not support the amendments 4 or 5 as well. Maybe as part of the whole process, once we get something up and running, if we do, then part of that could be incorporating the quick response public art grant. But I don't think this is the time to be necessarily doing that because it might be contrary to the overall impact that we're trying to create. So yeah, I do not support the recommended amendments.
Thank you. Any further debate on the amendment? That being the case, there's no summing up with an amendment. I'll just put it straight to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? The amendment is lost. Okay, we now resume debate. Say again, sorry. Divisions on amendments. We can. Those in the negative, please stand up to have your names recorded. Yep. And Councillor Nguyen. And I declare it, and those in favour were seated, I declare it still lost. Okay, thank you. We now resume debate on the motion, which is as per items 1, 2 and 3. We had a bit of discussion on item 3. Deemed to have spoken is Councillor Barnett, Councillor Pearce, Councillor De Backer and Councillor Ripp and myself. Councillor Nguyen.
I agree. We should try to look at in-house experience first, and if we could put an amendment on there to say that if we do need to look at external qualified a consultant, then we take that path. Is that an option?
CEO, I hope it would be cured by simply removing the term consultant and putting in practitioner.
Be a neat change. Councillor Nguyen, if you're proposing to move an amendment, would that amendment satisfy your desire that the word consultants is changed to practitioner, which means they could be internal or only, or a consultant? And we'll leave that to the team to sort out where the best resource is. Okay, so we'll propose that as an amendment, that one there, and again I'll seek leave, I'll ask the mover whether they're happy to incorporate, Councillor Barnett, and Councillor Pearce has seconded it, and that's seek leave of the meeting. All those happy to incorporate that change? All those against, discuss incorporate it. Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Nguyen? Any further debate? Deputy Mayor.
I was going to stand up, and I will stand up. So I was going to suggest an amendment, but maybe instead of that, I'm going to go and have a look at the streets in Unley that they're targeting for their program. I don't think they're that far through, or they haven't started. Rather than us all suggesting we get on a bus and head over there ourselves, I think it would be useful if we've got the chance to drive through that area and to get a good feel of the before picture, and then we could meet with the people from Unley to learn a little bit more about why they made this decision, what they hope to achieve, and then at some point in time we can see the after as well. So it could be a good comparison for us to see the difference adopting this sort of approach takes, and then it might help us be hopefully accepting of the fact that it's worth investing in. So I won't suggest an amendment, but I might suggest that if people have the chance to go around and have a look at that area, then it might help inform us a little bit better as well.
Thank you. Further debate? I'll just ask a question from the chair, if I can see, to the director. There have been a number of complaints about traffic, parking, construction traffic and the like, but Director, have you got an initiative underway to look at this street under the narrow streets policy?
Through the chair, yes. That's also part of our redevelopment of Davenport Terrace. We're in the process of working with ODASA to come up with concept plans for Davenport Terrace. And that'll include traffic management on Davenport Terrace and its side streets.
So just a further question, are the residents of Allen Street involved in, engaged in a process around getting their feedback on parking in their street?
Through the chair, no, we haven't got to that stage yet. That'd be the next stage.
Thank you. Look forward to it. There's been no further debate on that item. Councillor Barnett, do you wish to sum up?
Yes, thank you for the points that have been raised. I think the residents down there have actually started doing their Stogie pole art. I saw some outlines, drawings there. I think that it'd be a good suggestion from the Deputy Mayor and all, to go and perhaps individually sort of have a look at them and check out, like I'm familiar with Norman Terrace, which runs on the railway line there, so it's similar to our Devonport Terrace situation. I see that if we can get enough green in this, we might be able to apply for a Greener Neighbourhoods grant program. And seeing that Devonport Terrace, perhaps in the latest, if you read the community assessment panel minutes, what's happening down there. So trying to save a few more trees down there. And I think, yeah, I think that's about the main things. I think it's just exciting when we have projects that actually work with people, you know, that are interested enough, like the Devonport Terrace people, interested enough, or that's been dragged out. If we can get something a bit exciting out, just something that's, you know, and working with another council that's got very similar attributes to our own city, and that desire to improve our streets and our neighbourhood quality of life. So I encourage you to support this.
Thank you. That concludes debate. All those in favour? Against is carried unanimously. Item 10.8, the Rotary Centenary Place-Based Concept Design at Broadview Sports and Recreation Precinct, Yanta Tutu Yata. Our recommendations on page 128. Apologies, the full report is before you. Does anybody wish to move the recommendation on page 128? Councillor Ripp, wish to speak to it?
Yeah, I do. Just to say, they were really excited to see read this report. Thank you to the staff for printing the modified report that I read before. I definitely believe the play space and the dog park do need a serious upgrade. One question I do have through the chair for the director is I've had quite a bit of feedback from people who actually don't use the dog park. I mean, I've aired this to the director before verbally, but the feedback's been around a number of people don't use the dog park because it's not grassed in there, and their dogs, they like having their dogs on the oval, chasing a ball, chasing a stick, whatever it is, and that they don't use the dog park because of just the actual ground and the way it is. So can I just make sure with the upgrade that's been proposed that there is a fair bit of lawn area going in there? If I can just seek that clarification from the director, because I know having spoken to a few residents, they definitely want to see that included in that upgrade for them to use the dog park.
Director?
Yes, through the chair, I can commit that we'll be placing some turf or lawn in the dog park area. We're not trying. We'll be actually using a new product, which is a combination of mesh and lawn. Adelaide City Council have trialled this product over the last few months in their dog parks, and it's proved to be extremely successful. It's very hard to get normal lawn to grow in dog parks because of the high use. We're hoping this product will be very successful, and even though it's not a big dog park, it'll become popular again for the community.
Further?
Yeah, no, look, that's where I'll leave it. I do encourage people to support the recommendations. I know Councillor Harris has again wanted me to reiterate, yeah, he's received similar feedback from people in the community as well. So that lawn is something that's going to be really important, I think, and it'd be good to trial a new product.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak to it?
Just ask a quick question of the director, I believe. So, what stakeholder groups have been engaged with so far from a consultation point of view to get to this point?
Through the chair, the last Broadview fair that was held, we had a consultation session with the residents. We engaged them on what they wanted in a dog park. In a dog park and a new play space facility. So from that feedback, we use that to create this play space. We've also gone out to the Rotary Club to get some feedback from themselves because they donated money for the original barbecue and shelter that's located on the site, which will be removed. And they were happy with the proposed plans as well.
Second question. Is that the Broadview Fair that was held around the same time as the Prospect Fair, or was that a different one? That was...
Sorry, for the incorrect term. Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was
Prospect at Broadview.
I prefer the Prospects.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure I was at the same. I was at the same. Yeah.
Any further, Deputy Mayor?
Yes. In case someone was going to ask a question, I believe that if this project goes ahead, there isn't an opportunity to reuse any of the existing play equipment because it's now no longer compliant. Is that the case, Director? Just in case someone...
Through the chair, yes. Yes, unfortunately, Australian standards change every couple of years, and once you upgrade a play area, the old equipment needs to be removed and disposed of, and unfortunately that'll be the case with this equipment.
I support the motion, and as per Councillor Ripp's point, it's good to see that we're considering innovations to materials that we use in ways of providing a longer-term solution. Back then, Barron Dust Bowl went down the traditional grass path. So I look forward to seeing the results of the public consultation, but would really love to see this project happen in that space because it's a very important space in the city of Prospect.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Barnett?
Yes, I support the concept, especially the DDA inclusions. This came about some time ago, I think, with the Rotary Club putting one of the disability-friendly swings up in the was, or wheelchair type applications. So I think it's important we have that. One question I have that was being put to me, it could be not just this particular dog park, but others that may come out in the consultation, is that some owners, dog owners with small dogs, don't like taking them there when there are a lot of big dogs bounding around, for, the usual possibilities might happen when big meets small. So just throwing that into the mix for some consideration.
Any further debate? Councillor Nguyen?
Project, it's very interesting. Just one thing, when about the community engagement, I'd love for us to be creative in reaching out to the young people, the children who are the primary users of the play space, and asking them what they think about, the different equipment and all that kind of stuff. So it would be good to get their feedback and look at how we engage with them because they're the actual users of this place.
Thank you. Thank you. Just briefly from the chair, I'd really like to reinforce that. I think when we did the Memorial Gardens playground, we did a consultation there, and I think if I remember correctly, directors might remind me, we've won an award for it, for the consultation around that. Is that correct?
Yeah, we won a chair state planning award for innovative community engagement.
So Director, can you just give us a brief outline? What did we do that they considered innovative for us to win that award?
Through the chair, as I recall, and in my opinion, it was just basic grassroots communication, talking to the right people and having open conversations. There were small user groups of kids. They did a lot of sort of round tabling work where they talked about theming, and that's how they got the Alice in Wonderland theme. and it was really just a ground-up grassroots engagement-led plan.
Thank you. And a question to the Director for Playgrounds. Well, there's so many things in your directorship, Simon. Are you considering doing that type of consultation where kids are involved directly, you know, with putting their dots on their favourite bit of stuff and getting a really fine-grained consultation around this more developed concept?
Through the chair, I'm very familiar with the innovation, and I was part of the. I was very with the Memorial Gardens place-based consultation. I was very impressed with that, the detail that went into. Unfortunately, as this is a grant opportunity, we need to complete this playground by December of this year. So that refrains us from going into in-depth consultation such as we did with Memorial Gardens. We are proposing to go in a 500-metre radius of the reserve, so a lot of the users, that's a fairly big area. We could also go to the Nailsworth Primary School, but in terms of going to an in-depth consultation like we did with Memorial Gardens, unfortunately we wouldn't be able to get it built in time to meet the grant obligations.
Okay, so perhaps a suggestion is to do something more like that. I understand the time frames, but I'm sure we would be happy to have equipment in that playground that kids loved rather than meet some government time frame as our key performance objective. Just a couple of other questions. The playground equipment at Memorial Gardens, the elected members were very strong on making sure that it presented some risk. In other words, that it was useful for kids that were older than 6, that it wasn't so safe that it was only useful for really little kids. And that's been really successful. Has that been part of the design criteria here, that there's some height and there's some risk involved just to stretch kids' capability and, you know, their learning program regarding gravity?
No, that's a very good question. Yes, it has been designed for a range of age groups, and the climbing structure has been designed to test the ability of different age groups. We've got a little bit more space than we had at Memorial Gardens, so we've got the opportunity to create a few different areas. Nature play space is playing a big important role as well, and that can be risky for younger and older children.
Thank you. Could I ask that you give us some more detail around that element, because the drawing in A4 is really hard to pick up the detail, and the equipment that's referred to doesn't inspire me. Clearly there's more detail to it, but just some indication of what's going in the park in a bit more detail I think would be useful by memo, and we've got feedback, we can give it to you during the consultation process. And just a couple of bits of feedback on the design. I'm colourblind. I have to admit I have a disability, and I looked at that big blob of stuff in the dog park and I thought, I'm not quite sure what that is. It might be grass, but there'll be a little note on the drawing with an arrow pointing at it saying grass, and there's not. So I had to look at the sketch with dogs and kids running around and look at it and think, I'm pretty sure that's grass. But it's just a feedback to your design team. Never assume. Never assume. And with regard to Councillor Bunnett raised the issue of small dogs, I wouldn't be uncomfortable if you had time on the dog park, except, you know, small dogs between 4 and 5 or something like that. I'll tell you, my small dog, when it meets a big dog, just wants to eat it. So I think the risk is to the big dogs, not to the small dogs, and what I've seen, that dogs have no concept of size. They're really quite interesting creatures. So, but I support the overall concept. I know we've got to get on with it. I really look forward to the outcomes, but I really, really encourage the whole team to get really close to kids, local kids, about how to design this park and make it fantastic and loved. So support the recommendation. Any further debate? Councillor De Backer.
Just briefly, probably concurring with your point, Mayor, and Councillor Nguyen. Just, I think kids really want to be involved in this, and I'd hate to think we've actually got a shortage of ability to consult within our infrastructure team, because I think, you know, you want some degree of ownership of the community, and I think just to sort of engage with people that live within a 500-metre radius, that's not the people that necessarily use the space. So people come from all over and outside our area even. So it's really sort of focusing on the end users and some of the groups that have dogs and that kind of thing. So we've got an opportunity to use social media in different ways in the next couple of weeks, and I'd really hope that we can tag some of the schools and maybe, you know, if the kids want to have an artwork there that they can participate in or whatever it is, and get the kids involved in a fine grain capacity.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Ripp, you wish to sum up?
Yeah, just to pick up on the comments, particularly from a number of elected members around making sure through the consultation we pick up the views of young people. I think we've all heard that. I think some great comments.
Thank you. That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against is carried. All the best, that Director. 10.9, Next Generation Prospect Projects and SAPN Savings. Recommendation is on page 137 and 138. And
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I withdraw that? Workshop, I had some feedback. Elected members would like to spend some more time in the workshop.
Okay, we should withdraw that to go to a workshop. That'll be soon, I guess. You want to get this back to April then, I presume?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Withdrawn. I was going to note that there is a report related to it at item 4.5. Okay, next item is item 10.10, which is the Eastern Regional Alliance Strategic Plan 2020 to 2024 and the Chairman and CEO report January 2020. Recommendations on page 148. Somebody happy to move it its current form? Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak to it?
No thanks.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Group, do you wish to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Any further debate? Councillor Barnett?
Yes, I don't know whether it's because I was getting tired at the time, but I was trying to wade through all the wordy things happening, you know, and really trying to get down to grips with what, you know, yes, well, I guess I was trying to get to the nub of something first and say, oh, you know, that we've done this, we've done that, we've done this, and this is going to be happening. So that's just some feedback, I guess. I don't know why. But, you know, I support the Eastern Region Alliance, certainly. But again, it's left up to our mayors and CEOs, and I think we had some ideas going back some time that we might actually involve elected members, but we never seem to get involved in any of this, except, you know, things come back to us and then we're invited to give an opinion that way. So it's just a feeling I have.
Thank you. Noted. Councillor Backer.
Yeah, similar sentiments. One thing I did land on though was the electric vehicles charging network, and obviously we're in changing times, and obviously a lot of fuel is refined overseas and that kind of thing. I'm just wondering if there's any movement in that space as far as prospects involved.
Sorry,
Yeah.
CEO, electric vehicle charging stations from Prospect's perspective?
Not from Prospect's perspective. Certainly it's on our agenda. Certainly it's something we'd like to see happening. And I do note that it's now the Mayor's turn to chair the Mayor and CEO's meeting. It's my turn to chair the CEO's meeting, so that's just occurred. And we've just put out an agenda that's for the Mayor's meeting, which we hope that Councillor Barnett will start to push some more substantial issues forward. And we recognise the fact that perhaps the actual plan itself isn't the most compelling plan. So we will be working on that. The short answer, Councillor Backer, is absolutely on our radar, but not yet. Thank you.
Anything further, Councillor Backer? Any further debate on this one? I feel I should, well, I don't need to, but I will respond to Councillor Barnett's feelings. They're not feelings that I seek to dissuade you from having, Councillor. They match mine. I have found the era both a joy on occasion and frustrating on most occasions. And I'm well aware that I rejuvenated it in 2008, I think, in response to a whole pile of the Eastern Region mayors being new. And it was great for networking. It was great for sharing ideas. I think it's been very good for directors and senior managers to share ideas and to feel supported. But it has been very difficult to move large strategic items through this body, essentially because councils can operate as separate fiefdoms and legislatively are perfectly entitled to ignore each other. And so it's very difficult to actually get cooperation amongst things such as the agenda that's put here. The last strategic plan, former CEO Goldstone and myself put a lot of effort into. We pushed incredibly hard to have some milestones in it which were concrete and required business case approaches to sharing services. And I'm really disappointed to say that not a single one of them advanced beyond that strategic plan. And it's not for want of trying in this council. There is a high degree of reluctance to enter formalised shared services, even doing business cases. Some of that is because people want their own kind of space. Some of it's because they see that as a distraction from what their council's asked them to do anyway, which is perfectly legitimate. And some of it is because our industrial arrangements don't allow us easily to make people redundant. So therefore, how can you share a service and pick up a saving if you're still employing the people that were doing the service? So if you want to share properly, you've got some quite complex secondment or transferring employees arrangements to get in place. And so it gets in the way of substantial reforms in that area. So I find it frustrating at that high strategic level. But as the CEO has outlined, he and I do intend to take a firmer focus with it this year, try and bring value to it from the members' perspective and get some outcomes that can be pointed out to say, yes, there's been a lot of talk, but this is what actually happened. So thank you for reading the report and noting what you noted, Councillor. Reflects my sentiments precisely. Any further debate? Now, that being the case, Deputy Mayor, do you wish to sum up?
No, thanks.
Okay. Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 10.11, election of a Garrock representative, one casual vacancy, recommendations on page 180, but the recommendation requires us to cast a vote in favour of someone. I seek to suspend meeting procedures. I seek your approval to suspend meeting procedures until 9:15 should be needed. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. That they're suspended. This is always tricky for us because even I don't know all of the candidates, and I would hazard a guess that most of you would know very, very few of them. I do try and provide some kind of guidance from a strategic level in this space, but I don't like to give personal accounts of people's capability. That's for them to prove to you, and if they haven't written to you about their personal capability, then that's their choice. At the strategic level, the Greater Adelaide Region of Councils is a relatively new entity. It's about 18 months old. The intention was for it to be regionalised like the South Australian Region of Councils is regionalised into 7 regions. Those 7 regions have 2 reps or 1 rep each, depending on their population. It's a very successful structure. It's worked for many years. The Greater Adelaide region couldn't decide on the regional boundaries when it was first formed. That was due to go to the ordinary general meeting, which is due in April, that we had our motion going up to. That's now been postponed. That would have required people to vote on formalising the regions for the Eastern region to become one of 4 metro regions and Adelaide Hills to join that region, and us to be entitled to 2 reps on the Garrock executive. Then the South to have 2, the West to have 2, and the North to have 2. Now, the current composition of the Garrock body is that 4 of the representatives come from the Eastern region. So disproportionately high, good for us, you could say, but perhaps not so good for the other 3 regions. If you're asking where there's a deficit, it is in the South. The South, which is Mitcham, Marion, Onkaparinga, at this stage doesn't have a rep on Garrock, and the resignation that created this casual vacancy was a councillor from the City of Marion who resigned because he got a job as an officer at the Renmark Council, I think. So he had physically moved away from the City of Marion, so resigned from council. So that's a bit of background. My recommendation, if you ask me for one, was that we try and get the proportionality a bit better balanced around the table.
One of my questions to you and the CEO would be, where do we see, you've outlined perhaps one of them, in a sense, what other perhaps items, characteristics, attributes, whatever, that might be missing from the current group. So you've talked about the geography of it.
Yes.
So gender-wise, things, and also well, there was one comment that caught my eye that because they weren't a mayor, they were saying, well, it might be useful that most of them are mayors to have an elected member that's not a mayor's point of view. So something else that leapt out at me. So yeah, I know if you've got any other information about it.
Yes, on those two things, the gender balance is okay. I think it's got a higher proportion of women than men on the Garrock executive at the moment. So if you want to balance, you know, it's probably a bloke rather than a woman, but that's up to you. There is at least one of each gender, so that's right. Secondly, whether it's a mayor or a councillor is a tricky one, because yes, you can get a councillor on there, and that was the person that was from Marion, was a councillor, and they were very, very good. But if you're looking for representation, the councillor can speak on their own behalf, but they can't speak with as much authority as a mayor about their council. This is a difficult one because I'm not discounting a councillor's views, because they are sometimes subtly but usefully different to a mayor. And a mayor can be speaking too much about their own council, but so can a councillor, because their experience might not be very broad. So in the main, you find these positions are, people vote mayors on, but Councillor Crystal Mix from Norwood Plains St Peters ably represents the eastern region and her area quite well. So I don't have a hard line on that particular issue. It's really more the calibre of the person. In terms of what's missing around the table, I haven't given that any thought, but perhaps someone who is a little more innovative and perhaps a little more driven to improve local government might add some value. Not to say people there aren't, but that would probably help. Good questions. Are there any others?
Because I think with Mayor Erin Thompson, first the time on Mayor on Coringa, but nevertheless quite experienced as a communication professional in City of Clayford and City of Unley. You know, I'm just wondering, do we have that balance with the big, medium, small council as well?
Well, they're the biggest. Pretty hard to have balance when you've got Onker in the room.
The smallest.
Yes. Balance. Of the three southern ones are all fairly big councils, 70, 85,000 and 160,000. The ones that are there at the moment, there's a fair mix of councils that are, Salisbury is there, 140,000. Norwood Plains St Peters, us. So there is a bit of a balance there, I guess, already. I don't sense that there's an imbalance, I guess.
I'm assuming, is Garrock voluntary? Is it a voluntary board, or is it a paid position?
I think there might be a meeting fee. Sorry, I'm on the board as well. There is a fee for the board.
Yes.
I think there might be a small fee for Garrock.
Like $100.
Something like that.
Sorry, I'm going to ask a question. We're at a session. Yeah.
We are,
Would it be best if, like, so I know there's a few candidates in the mix, are we best to select a few names that we're interested in and then do a secret ballot, or do we do a secret ballot and we just hope that we get more than one name?
We voted this before.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember what we did before.
We just did it by consensus.
Yeah, we do. It's better to do it by consensus. If there's not agreement, then we'll do a ballot. Yeah, we've got options. Yeah.
I'm just being mindful. I just want the staff that are here, the skeleton staff that are here, because we're in a bit of a crisis. If there's any way we can expedite this meeting, people probably have families at home with children and people are worried. So I'm mindful of just doing things as either quickly, or we could we lay some things on the table, or this has to be done by the 16th. We could do this in a virtual meeting next week.
Well, that'll be more time away from home, but it needs to be done at some point. So it's, we have to call a special meeting to do that, which would be.
Well, we could do it virtually though. We could.
It has to be a formal council meeting decision. So whether it's virtual or not, it's still time. I guess you could be at home. But
yeah, well, that's it's more mindful of the staff than anything else. It's just a comment more than it. So if it's things that aren't still on the agenda that might take a lot of time, I'm just mindful of being here.
I mean, the only two people I've heard from in this process, I think it was Mayor Heather Holmes-Ross, I think was the one that sent an email around to everyone. Helga, and Kim McKay. Probably as I was co-councillor with Kim at West Torrens. I think he's been pretty outspoken on some of the NRM issues in past years. I think he'd be a good addition, but they're the only three I've heard from. So myself considering from people who don't contact.
Yep. Anyone else got any thoughts? There's some opening ones.
Again, I've only heard from two. So in light of that, I was going to vote for one of those two. That was my opinion.
I'd be happy to put Mayor Claire Bones' name forward. I want to start getting down to syntax and names, which we have to do at some point. I'll start my bidding there.
You want to explain that logic?
Look, I don't know Claire. I have to say there's no conflict of interest here. I don't know Claire, but I've watched her from afar. We got elected on the same election a couple of elections ago. She was here the other week. I've seen the way she operates. I think she's a very good representative, probably a bit more progressive and of a demographic which I think would be really good around the table with Garrett.
Any other comments?
Well, I mean, look, probably because I think I might have missed one either, but I'll put just on the fact that there was an email that went around to everyone and follow up when I emailed the person. It was Mayor Heather Holmes-Ross. I mean, just on the sheer effort too.
Okay, well, we don't have consensus, so why don't we try and flush it out with a ballot with a number one against your top preference and see if that flushes something out, and then if it does, we can formalise that. So you can't touch paper. That's tricky. CEO, inspiration.
Email you. Plastic gloves.
Could we just pull out some hand sanitizer and just get it ready to sanitise and take touch the paper? I think that's the only thing we can do.
Could we text Jasmine now?
Yes,
or email
people happy with that.
Email her.
Email.
She will be the confidential returning officer. Is everybody happy with that?
Email preference, yes? Okay, so, and just remind people your email. Yeah, has everyone got it? Everyone got Jazz's email? Yeah. Okay. You've got a list in front of you there. Send your preferred number one to Jazz.
I've got an email up, I can't seem to see.
And you can probably put it in the subject heading to make life.
Put it in the subject?
Yep.
We're innovating already. It's brilliant.
Jasmine, isn't it? Carrot became garlic.
Garlic. That's good.
We have a tie. We normally pull out of the hat, but that's going to be tricky.
Get virtual hats.
Toss a coin.
No,
You like the football days, you know?
no, because we have a procedure.
Well, Jasmine could write that on a piece of paper and pull them out.
Jasmine could touch her own paper and pull it out.
Sorry, Joanne.
There's 8 in the room.
There's 8 in the room.
No, it's fine.
They did the head count.
Well, it depends on.
Chair, the results are in.
Got
Well,
mine?
it doesn't vote.
Mine
Not-
just come through.
you don't qualify for a vote.
Sorry.
David.
Is that fair?
Did you forget me?
No, I just figured that you would start in totally what we normally do. Unless it's a typo.
No, in the ballot, Mayor's always voted.
Chair, there's
Yeah.
a
Because
clear,
it's not a council decision, it's a ballot.
They don't be necessary.
It's a ballot and then the person's name goes forward.
Is it clear outcome? Thank you. Yes?
Heather Holmes Ross.
Heather Holmes Ross is a clear.
We have
Winner?
5 votes.
5 votes. Okay. Any further discussion in formal? If not, I'm going to go back into formal session and ask for someone to move that way with Mayor Heather Holmes Ross inserted at number 2. Thank you. Councillor Rip, you speak any further to it? Do I have a seconder? Councillor De Backer, wish to speak to it? Very creative. Do I have any further debate? That concludes debate. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. All right. We'll look everywhere now.
Always here to
You're a champion. 10.12, review and update of existing policy recommendations on page 202. Somebody happy to move this currently presented? Deputy Mayor, you should speak to it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor De Backer, you should speak to it. Any further debate?
Yes. I've just got a, I'll do it for Councillor Harris, who's raised with me before the meeting that he doesn't, would not like to see the, and he's said to me that he would not like to see the, that he does not support the recommendation to change the acknowledgement to the Kaurna people. So I don't know if he's spoken with the staff about the reasons as to why. Can I just get some clarification as to why that acknowledgement to countries changed, or would it be okay if we stuck with the original one?
through you, Chair, to
Director.
Through the chair, that recommendation was following the Reconciliation Action Plan that was adopted by Council. And that particular, the wordings of that has actually been checked with the Reconciliation Australia. So Council has adopted the Reconciliation Action Plan back in 2018, I think, 24th of April 2018, and those were the words that was included in the Reconciliation Action Plan. So we are just tidying up the meeting procedure to reflect.
Okay, I'll pass it over. He can bring it up if he's got. I'll just add a question for him. Yeah.
Thank you. And Councillor Wood.
Yeah, I actually had the same question, not from Councillor Harris, I should say, but can I just ask another question on that through the chair? So when we made the change to what's been proposed, was that recommended to us by Reconciliation Australia, or did we come up with those words in some other way as part of the development of our graph?
So I was advised that following Council's endorsement, the Reconciliation Action Plan was submitted to the Reconciliation Australia.
Yeah.
And they have not recommended any changes to the acknowledged country. So they have looked at that. Yeah.
I'm just trying to go back a step though. Where did we get those new words from?
Yes. I don't.
Because I don't recall
No,
them being subject to debate at all. That's not to say that they weren't clear as part of the plan. I don't know
Yeah.
that's what happened. I'm just not sure where those words actually formed from or by.
So those were.
Director.
Sorry.
Do you have anything further on that, Director?
So prior to being endorsed by Council, the RAP occurred and feedback was received from members of the RAP working group. 2 members were Indigenous staff from Council and the Reconciliation Australia. So those words were in consultation with Reconciliation Australia.
with the
So hang on. Councillor Groot has the floor.
So did we as a member body come up with the new words, or were they recommended to us? Sorry, Jim, I know you probably can't answer this, so I apologise for having to ask you that. But did we come up with those words independently? Did Reconciliation Australia say, here are the new words you should include in the RAP? Because I hear that they approved them, and that's fine because they would. But I'm just trying to work out how we got them there in the first place. Because I'm not a big fan of changing them, but if they're changed for a good reason, then I'll support it.
Through you, Chair, we've got another director who's actually
Sorry, Director.
I may, through the chair, I was more strongly involved in Group and Moon at the time. The RAP as a whole was developed by a staff working party that also comprised a local Indigenous representative. The draft RAP came to Council, including recommendations to change Garner Welcomes to dual name parks, to do 40 plus recommendations over the life of the plan. That was endorsed as a draft by the body of council. That was then endorsed as a final version by the body of council. Then it went to Reconciliation Australia and was endorsed at that point. In a roundabout way, in answer to your question, we came up with the words. It would have been driven by that working party before going through those authorisation steps.
So one last question. In the RAP, where we talk about the new acknowledgement of country, does that require us to have that as part of our council meetings, or was that a statement of intent in the RAP? I'm just trying to, did we say in the RAP that yes, this is what we're going to say at the beginning of each council meeting, or is it just in the RAP? And we're then making the link between our reconciliation action plan and our meeting.
Yeah, my understanding is because that is the acknowledgement of country. So while we review our meeting procedure, we're just updating that will be our reading of the acknowledgement of country.
So look, keeping in mind what the director said earlier about the process of developing it, I don't think I have a choice other than to accept it. I don't know that any of us probably thought that would change the Garner acknowledgement within the council meeting. So it might be that we have to go back to that another time. But I think it's gone through that process. It's engaged staff, it's engaged elected members, which I certainly did. It had elected members representation of the work group as well from memory. Yeah, I will support it, but I just think maybe it's worth revisiting. And even if the policy says our monthly council meetings acknowledgement, it's different to what's in the RAP, that might be where we end up. But if it's in the RAP, I think I will support it.
Yes.
Thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, it just doesn't sit properly with me about the fact that it says the new version, City of Prospect acknowledges that we are on the traditional country, etc. It's either City of Prospect acknowledges that it meets or we are meeting on. You know, it just doesn't make really much sense. When you read it, say out loud.
Anything further, Councillor Barnett?
I don't know what else we can do about it without seeing, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, I'll be happy to go along with it, but I just think it doesn't really read properly.
Thank you. Councillor Rick.
I asked the question before, was I deemed to have spoken to it?
You were, but I'm happy to take another question if you've got a question.
I was actually going to move for deferral, but that's fine. We can. If I've deemed to have spoken to it, I respect that.
Just briefly from the chair, I wasn't across the exact wording, but I'm not surprised that we've been asked to update it. These things do get updated, and they get updated because sometimes the language is seen as a bit clunky, sometimes it's seen as being inappropriate, and I'm always sensitive to the people who are involved in these things, that they spend a lot of time trying to get this language to be as acceptable as it can to the people that it matters to. I think it's important that we add City of Prospect to it, because at the moment it just says we. So if I read you the current one, it says we would like to acknowledge this land that we meet on today is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. Now, what's being proposed is not terribly different to that, but it does talk about the Adelaide Plains region, the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains region. So it's a bit more, it's just a different way of describing it. And we pay our respects to elders past and present, which our current acknowledgement doesn't say. And it is very common for acknowledgements to pay respects to elders past and present, and that is, as I understand it, something that's very important to the Aboriginal people themselves, and they will do that every time they speak in terms of welcome to country. We don't do it at the moment, so I think that's something that we should acknowledge. The second part of it is very similar to what we currently have, so you can read what's in the report, but I'll read you aloud what we currently have at the beginning of the meeting. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region, and that their cultural heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. Very, very similar. So I'm not troubled by what's there. I understand that people have spent time and effort on it. I understand these things do change and people's use of language changes, and I welcome the work that's been put into it. I'm happy if someone comes back and proves it all, you know, that we've gone down the wrong pathway. So be it in the future, but I don't think that's the case because the work has been done and checked as far as I'm aware. So I'm encouraging you to support it because I think that is the right thing to do, and to be careful that we are seen to hang on to old words. No one's actually said to us that those old words were tested and written by full consultation with Kaurna people, and I'm sure they were. But perhaps they weren't. We don't have that history before us at the moment. Maybe we made them up and maybe we got that wrong. I don't know that history. But what I do know is that these words have been recommended through a process that's engaged with the Kaurna people, and I think I'm happy to respect that process. Any further debate? All right, that being the case, Deputy Mayor, do you wish to sum up?
No, thanks.
That concludes the debate. All those in favour? Against? It's unanimous. Thank you. Carried unanimously. Item 10 to 13, CEO Performance Development Review Committee Probation Outcome, recommendation on page 235. Someone wish to move it in its current form? Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak to it?
It's been a good process so far. I think the report is well put together, and I'm sure everyone's read it, and look forward to hearing any questions on it.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Groot, wish to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Further debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? So I'll take that again, Deputy Mayor, given that you moved it. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously.
I was waiting for a chance to sum up.
Sum up at your speech, Deputy Mayor. Congratulations, CEO.
Thank you very much.
Welcome aboard again.
Welcome aboard again. Appreciate it.
Item 11, general business, urgent business. Is there any business of an urgent nature? Councillor Ripp.
Yes. I mean, I know it was briefly talked about before. I haven't done this process before, so do I need to state that what I would like to put forward for urgent business, or how does it work?
So you need to state it, and then before it can be considered, I need to ask the members whether they agree that it's genuinely urgent. That's
Okay.
the first motion.
Sure. So what I'll move is so that the item for urgent business I'd like to put forward is number 1, that the City of Prospect submit as many shovel-ready projects as possible to the State Government Planning and Development Fund application process where applications have been extended and due by the 9th of April 2020. Point 2, if need be, the City of Prospect Council hold a special general meeting to approve or disapprove of applications being put forward. So,
Do we have that in writing anywhere? Can you give that to our...
I'll type it, but yes, I can. If you want, I can bring it over to you. So you can,
Yeah, it's a bit long. If you've got something written up, can you bring that down to the Minute Secretary to put on the screen?
my handwriting's disgrace, so I'll...
At a distance, you might need to put it on the floor.
You have to worm it across.
Make sure that the 2 Ds...
Slide up the back, metre to a metre and a half, the PM tells us.
Alarm. Alarm.
Just wait for that to go up, and people have heard the nature of the motion. I will need a motion to consider the matter.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Question, Councillor
So
Barnett?
is the question not whether it's considered to be of an urgent nature before before
Yes,
we
That's-
actually do anything?
that's what I just suggested. I'm just looking, we don't do this very often. So I need someone to move that it is of an urgent nature and needs to be considered at this meeting. Is that correct, Governance Manager?
It's actually up to yourself if you would accept this motion.
Simple as that. Is this one of those rare moments where I have some power? Oh, I should dwell on this and consider.
Ask a question.
Once it's written up there. And if I can ask a question to the CEO, is this a deadline that we're working towards already?
We are, and perhaps the Director of Infrastructure could give us some update on what we're doing already.
Director, the 9th of April deadline, what are we doing already?
We've looked at various projects about one, whether we can have them ready in time, and two, whether they meet the guidelines. We've identified that the Vine Plaza concept plan, we can submit an application and submit it for that grant program. And we're also looking at other capital works programs and seeing if we can get design fast-tracked to be able to be ready for other stimulus packages.
Thank you. Thank you. Brief question.
Yeah, if we were to have a special council meeting, what's the soonest date we could actually have it virtually?
CEO, earliest opportunity for a virtual council meeting?
I would think next week. We assume that the Gazette will happen about Thursday or Friday. It has to be gazetted by the Minister. It's gone through both houses. We would assume that it'll be ready.
Feasibly, it could be, okay.
Sorry?
Feasibly, it could be a Tuesday before a workshop or something?
Something like that.
It could be as early as Thursday, but I think that's a safe bet. Next week should be fine. Yeah. I'm going to accept it as genuinely urgent, given the timing, and if we do need to have a special meeting, that needs to be scheduled in as well. So I'll allow the motion under this this item. Councillor Rip, do you see any need to speak to it any further?
I will. Yeah. Look, I would be really, really disappointed. I know this is if we don't have applications that are shovel ready, to be honest, to put forward to this Planning Development Fund. We have a once in a lifetime opportunity here with the state calling for applications, and we keep saying to the community, oh, we can't do it, we can't do certain things because of obviously budget constraints. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity where we can submit a stack of applications that are shovel ready forward for consideration. Now, yes, it is a 50-50 fund, but if we can get even one or two projects up of our existing project base where the state end up funding 50% of it, well, then we can actually bring forward some of these future year projects that we're saying we've got to put in the long-term financial plan for 2 years out because we can't afford it. We can start bringing some of them forward. I think this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. We should have, I'd be really disappointed if we don't have some projects that are shovel ready that have been in the pipeline that we can't put forward. I really think we would be missing out on a golden opportunity to put applications forward if we don't. And if we then turn around to I think we'd look silly if we don't put some applications forward, to be honest with you, because for us to then turn around, well, classic one is, even though it is in draft form, we could put the Broadview Master Plan forward. We really should by now have that master plan should have been coming back to us now, in my opinion, to endorse the council. That should have happened. That could be something we put forward to see if the state could give some money towards an element of that. That's just one example. But yeah, I really urge the councils to support this. I think we'd be missing the boat if we don't put something forward.
You do have a second. Councillor Barnett.
I'm convinced like the Mayor that because of the time frame it is urgent, and it's certainly an opportunity that doesn't come along very often. Occasionally we get these things happening, like with the about the first stage probably of the Prospect Oval, of the grandstand. I'm just wondering, apart from the Broadview Tennis Club and some other things like the street or road construction type ones, think they're the ones that they're sort of looking for, aren't they, that employ people. But also about a Prospect Oval strategic plan, you know, if there's any element of that. Maybe not in this time frame, but we should be revisiting some of those, given it's likely not just this year, but also, from my reading, some next year as well, that we'll still need to have economic stimulus for quite a few years.
Thank you. Any debate? No, just from the chair, just to rattle up a few things in support of the motion. Vine Street Plaza stage 2 can certainly be brought forward. Stage 1 we're committed to, but if we get it done all at once, that'll be good. Prospect Oval, yes, and Director, hopefully you're jotting down these as ideas to explore the terraces and turning some into grass mounds, given that the condition of the terraces is in very poor condition. Should be very easy to document. Churchill Road stage 3 up to our northern boundary is not fully documented, but we have sufficient documents from stages 1 and 2 that we could use as the template for going north. And now that Kaufland's fallen over, we don't know how long we'll be waiting for something else, so we could get funding to get on and do something regardless. And the townhouses are in terms of the Broadview Oval Master Plan, I'm not so sure this particular fund works for the tennis club and the football club, but hey, don't ask, don't get. So I'm happy that we can advance those. I think there may be other tasks around the Prospect Oval Master Plan, although they don't spring to mind, that we could document and get ready. Director, are there any others that you're thinking of or working on?
Through the chair, yes, we've got a couple of road projects, the Livingston Avenue road reconstruction, and also Murray, I think it's Murray Street, road reconstruction, new curbing and footpath, both around the $1 million projects. They're both design ready and ready for construction. So we're looking at how we can fast track those projects as well.
Sorry, my understanding, Director, is that this fund is out of the Planning and Development Fund and it doesn't cover roads. But can you just clarify what's within the remit of the grant fund?
No, sorry, the grant funding you're referring to, yes, is predominantly for the purchase and or upgrade of open space. We're also getting ready for if there's any other state or federal stimulus package grants available that could be for civil projects.
Okay, so there's probably a second phase. Just so you can't see the screen, obviously, Director.
Yes, I can.
Oh, you can? Oh,
yes,
really?
I can. Oh, not the screen. Sorry, no, it's blurry.
Right, okay. We refer specifically to the government's Planning and Development Fund application. So Livingston, I don't think would be eligible for that. Can you just clarify that?
No, that's correct.
Okay,
no,
so
that's correct.
Are you happy to take suggestions from elected members over the next 1 or 2 days for other open space projects if they think of them?
Only too happy to.
Okay, thank you. Any further debate? If not, I'll put the motion. Sorry, Councillor Ripp, you wish to sum up? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It is carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, any further items of urgent nature? No, items, reports of information. We'll do these by en bloc unless they're withdrawn. Does anybody wish to withdraw item 12.1, the mayoral monthly activity report? No. Anyone wish to withdraw item 12.2, the Eastern Waste Management Authority meeting minutes? No. Item 12.3, does anybody wish to withdraw the co-housing for ageing well project update? Councillor De Backer. Anyone wish to withdraw? We don't need to do that. We've done that already. 12.4, item 12.5, the Alliance Prospect Land French Quarter Strategy. Does anybody wish to withdraw that? That's going to come to a workshop. No. Okay, does someone wish to move on block items 12.1, 12.2, 12.5? Councillor Barnett, and seconded by Deputy Mayor, I take it. There's no debate on items on block. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor De Backer, did you wish to move item 12.3, recommendation page 249?
Yes, I did, and just briefly speak to it. Look, I think it's a really important subject, especially at the moment. Certainly using the existing housing we've got and noting that you've got in some of the proposals separate entranceways. So one of the things that we have is an issue, I guess, with coronavirus is if you've got a whole group of similar aged people in one facility, that also it creates a huge vulnerability. So there's a support network that you can sort of live semi-independently as well. So I'm really keen to see more of this kind of housing available in our suburbs, and I'm really keen to hear more about it. So thanks for bringing the report to us.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Yes.
Councillor Barnett, you should speak to it.
Yes, just that I'm really pleased that we have this report and project before us. I think we'll be needing, a whole lot more of this sort of new way of looking at how we house our people, particularly perhaps our older residents, and the housing diversity. And I'm hopeful that also delighted that the submission went into for the planning and design code as well. Yes, I look forward to a bit more action happening later on.
Okay, thank you. Any further debate? Councillor Backer, do you see need to sum up? That concludes debate. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. On to council member reports and briefings. Are there any? Councillor Ripp.
Yeah, just quickly, obviously touching on an important subject, obviously with the coronavirus. Just obviously, I've had some communication from local residents, obviously, on the impacts and what support there is available. So I have been referring people to state and federal websites. So I was speaking to a business owner that said runs leadership business, and he said to me, that he's lost $50,000 of bookings in 1 week. Alone. So there are obviously people are hurting out there, not just businesses, but individuals as well that are worried about, can they afford to pay their next bill? Refer them obviously to stimulus packages, but I think it'd be really important of us to, through Network Prospect as well, that we do support as many struggling people out there in the community. I think obviously we're doing what we can, but yeah, it's really important that we just get that right messaging out there. So I've been, and one resident, elderly resident I spoke to was worried this week about a relative stranded, I think it was somewhere in Italy. So I was just giving her about the Smart Traveller website and just referring her to consular assistance. So I've had a couple of those type of inquiries from residents this week that have been pretty, obviously people in some pretty difficult situations. So I think it's important we do what we can through Network Prospect as a community to keep it as tight as possible and support each other.
Thank you. Any further member reports or briefings? No, that being the case, motions on notice are a nil, questions with notice nil. Confidential items we have two. Item 16.1. Somebody happy to move part 1 that we go into confidence? Councillor Barnett, you should speak to it. Deputy Mayor as seconder, I presume. You wish to speak to it? No. Okay. Do we have any further debate on that item? No. All those in favour? Against? Sorry, just do that again. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And those of you who aren't supposed to be in here can now leave the